Hey everyone, Scooter Lev here. Wanted to do a video today and talk about another interest of mine and how it relates to my card collecting interest and hobby, and how recently my collecting has evolved to link the two. Many of you know me from Bo Thompson's morning live stream, Hobby Evolution, where he talks about how we all evolve as hobbyists and how our collections evolve over time. If you would have asked me a little over a year ago what I am a collector of, I have many interests outside card collecting, but relative to card collecting, I would have vehemently told you that I was exclusively a vintage baseball collector. But in the last year, that's really changed with some unique additions to my collections and some events that occurred that led me down this path. And so I thought I would share those with you today. Well, going back to how this got started, as you see there in front on the camera, you'll see a couple of artifacts. I've always had a passion for military history and specifically naval history. You'll see an outline of a ship there. That's actually an outline of the battleship Texas, which fought in both the European theater at D-Day and then ultimately was involved in several of the island campaigns in the Pacific towards the end of World War II. That piece of metal is actually taken from the torpedo blisters that they recently removed when the Texas was in dry dock down in Galveston. Last year ago, October, I was able to tour the dry dock and actually walk underneath the battleship Texas, which was literally a once-in-a-lifetime bucket list type event to walk under 26,000 tons of battleship. It was amazing, and so that was an item that I purchased to help support the restoration of the Texas. The piece of wood that it is setting on is actually a piece of the teak deck of the battleship New Jersey. Both the Texas and New Jersey have really good YouTube channels, so if you haven't seen those, be sure and check those out because they go into the history of both of those American warships and the crew that served on them for many years. So like I said, naval history has always been a passion and something that I've enjoyed learning about. So how does this relate to card collecting? Well, going back to Bo's Hobby Evolution, one of the things that has allowed me to do is meet some amazing people and good friends. And one of those good friends is Zach Byrne of Zach and Porter fame, if you ever watch their channel. And if you don't, you need to, because they are two awesome collectors in the hobby. So this all started when Zach was in Oklahoma for some family matters, and we met in Stillwater, Oklahoma for an afternoon, and we were able to go to a local antique shop. And at that local antique shop, we were going through quarter boxes, and I came across this card right here. That's the HMS Repulse. It is a British battleship, and this card was issued in 1937 by Park Drive Cigarettes, and depicts, I think there's 50 total cards in the set. But after finding this card, I did some research on it and discovered that these cards are extremely affordable. If you look behind here, that's the entire set of the 1937 Park Drive Navy set. I obtained that on eBay for, get this, $10. That included shipping. It's hard to believe that you can acquire a pre-World War II set of tobacco cards for less than a cost of a modern blaster pack. And it's a beautiful set. And what I came to find out is there are numerous sets of British tobacco cards that were issued in the intra-war period between World War I and World War II that depict everything from football, as they call it, to military subjects like this, or locomotives, or automobiles, or flowers, or birds. In fact, if you go out on YouTube, you can find a really interesting path film which depicts cartography, which is very interesting video of the London Tobacco Card Exchange that was established in the 1930s. Think of it as a 1930s version of Burbank sports cards. So if I can figure out how to do it, I'll put a link in the notes to this video. But it really goes to show how active folks were in collecting these tobacco cards in England prior to World War II. So fast forward that to this last Thanksgiving, and I was out on eBay, as many of us do, over the holidays, and I came across a seller who has many of these tobacco sets. So I ended up buying two of them. One was the 1938 Speed set. It's a beautiful set that depicts planes, trains, automobiles, the like, anything that has something to do with speed. It's a 50 card set, and it cost me $12 shipped. Another set that I picked up was sort of the follow-on to the Navy set, and it's a 1939 Will cigarette set called Life in the Royal Navy, and it depicts life in the Royal Navy immediately prior to World War II, and has some amazing imagery in it as well. Now think about that. All of these sets, these three sets, all almost 90 years old, cost me less than $35 total. And each one of them has just unbelievable cards in it. And some of those cards depict the things of interest during that period of time. Many of you have heard about the Battle of Britain. Well, some of the cards in that set depict that. Here you have the Hawker Hurricane, which was one of the two primary British fighters that engaged in the Battle of Britain. And of course, actually, this is the Hurricane I just put up, the Spitfire. So, yes, don't at me, all you World War II air buffs, but yes, you have the Spitfire on the right and the Hurricane there on the left. Now, of course, they went to battle against the German Me-109 fighter, and then the Heinkel HE-111. That was a bomber that flew over Great Britain during the Blitz, and was caused the loss of many British civilians. Also in that set, they have the American bomber that most people know, and that's the Boeing B-17. That's a pre-World War II version. You can always tell because they added some bracing between the stabilizer there, the vertical stabilizer, and the very back to strengthen the tail right before it got active in the early 40s over Europe. So those are some beautiful cards that were part of the Speed set. Well, another thing that hit me as I was going through and I was looking at these cards and thinking about the images that they depict is this was a point in time right before a worldwide conflict that led to the loss of millions of lives. And in these cards, there are a few ships that are also depicted. And I was going to go through a couple of those. And the first one I will show you is the HMS Thames. It was a submarine, had a crew of 61, and they believe that it hit a mine sometime in August of 1940 as it never returned from its patrol. So those sailors are an eternal patrol. Then after that, there's the HMS Southampton. The Southampton was sunk in January of 1941 with the loss of 81 lives. Next, I'll go back to the card that started all of this, the HMS Repulse. The HMS Repulse was sunk in December of 1941, and unfortunately 508 sailors lost their lives. And then finally, and probably the saddest of all of these ships is the HMS Hood. Many of you may know the story on the Hood, but the Hood had the misfortune of battling the Bismarck, the German battleship. And on the morning of May 24th, 1941, a shell hit the Hood's magazine, and of the 1,415 sailors on, or 18 sailors on board that day, all but 3 lost their lives. So over 1,400 sailors aboard that ship died on the morning of May 24th, 1941, which kind of brings me to the summation of this video, because I always look at cards and I try to think who was the young man or boy that opened these cards, and always kind of put myself in their shoes. Well, obviously these being tobacco cards and how common tobacco was in the military pre-World War II, I can't help but think of the sailors, many of who lost their lives on these ships that I just talked about. How many of these cards came from their personal collection or were originally opened by them? It really brings home how fragile life is and how the hobby can help teach us history. It can help us honor those who have passed and really bring multiple interests into alignment. So, this has been a very interesting trip for me to go through these 3 sets that I've acquired and really stop and pause and think about where they came from, who was the person who originally opened them, and whatever happened to that person. Because many of us say it, our collections are only our collections for a point in time. Someone else will own all of our cards someday. Maybe that'll be someone that we pass it on to. Maybe that'll be someone who we know that purchases it, or maybe our cards will ultimately be split up, to the 4 winds and sold off, as unfortunately so many collections are. But again, we are just caretakers of these beautiful artifacts for a period of time, and we should always keep that in mind, because this hobby is phenomenal. It helps tell the history of each of the sports that we engage in, and in this case, it also helps tell world history. So with that, I'm going to sign off now. I wish everybody happy collecting and a happy new year, and we will talk to you later.